really the idea is to just get you thinking about relationships, get you thinking about, what it's all about. And I think we'll go from there. So any questions that you have, any ideas that you have, please just put them in the comments. You can even privately WhatsApp them to me if you don't feel comfortably, or you can even private comment them to me. And then let's see what happens. So what we're going to do is we are going to talk for around 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And then afterwards, we're going to go through a session of questions and answers. And I'll try to get to all of the questions that you ask. So tonight, we're going to talk about love. When we talk about love, the first question you want to ask yourself is, who do we love? Who do we love more than anyone else? More than anything else? What is our greatest love as human beings? Think about it a second. What is our greatest love? It's obviously ourselves. There's no one greater than myself. There's no one that is going to love me more than I love myself. I will always love myself. I have a double standard when it comes to myself, and everyone else is second class compared to me. Why? Because I'm the greatest thing that ever existed. I'm God's gift to humanity, right? These are the things that we tell ourselves. We have a bias towards ourselves, and there's nothing we can do about it. You're going to say, oh, well, I can think critically, and I can think, we're all biased towards ourselves. So before we understand what love is, we have to understand, who am I? Because in order to love another, we need to love ourselves first. Because if I don't love myself, which naturally should be the first and the foremost love, then how do I expect to even love anyone else or anything else? I'm sure you know this quote from Pirkei Avot. Hillel would say, if I'm not for me, who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself alone, what am I? And if not now, when? It's so easy to blame our mom, our dad, our dog, our past relationships. It's so easy to blame other people for the problems that we're currently having. But that would be way too easy, and you know that. So this is really about you. It begins with you, and it ends with you. And it's best that we just start off with that. That if we want to make a change in our life, if we want to understand how to be with another, we need to make sure to know that it begins and ends with us. I am the common denominator in all my failed relationships. You can go and blame other people, but it's not going to help you. If you want to make a change, if you want it to be different, then your parents, your past, your failures, all of those things, it's easy to blame others, but blame yourself first, because you were in that as well. You were part of that as well. Well, I don't know about your parents. We can talk about it a different time about maybe later on in this session, I'll talk about what happens if you're from a divorced home. What do you do and how do you get married since you don't have role models for relationships? How do you actually be able to move forward and get married without a role model? So I'll save that for later. I believe that our society has become completely desensitized to love. We push love under the carpet. We think that romance, that passion, that excitement, that's what love is. Love seems to be this scary four-letter word that's used so often that we don't even have a meaning for it. It's an abused word. I mean, you love ice cream and you love your grandma. How can you equate ice cream with your grandma? I mean, I know you probably like ice cream, but it's not to the level that you like your grandma. And that same love for ice cream and that same love for grandma is the same love that we use to talk about a spouse. How is that possible? So either the word love is flat or the word love is really dynamic, and we have to understand all the nuances, the nuts and bolts and the nuances of love. Commercial advertising perpetuates this abuse of the word love by correlating the word love with whatever they want you to buy from them. How often the word love is used. I love what you do for me, Toyota. Or all the popular love songs. What it does, it just once again desensitizes us. It doesn't allow us to have any substantive meaning to what is something that is supposed to be so powerful, so intrinsic, and so much part of who we are. So, even though maybe we kvetch a little, I say that if we love everything, we really love nothing. I'll say it again. If we love everything, then we really love nothing. I actually took a quick look at Romance languages. I figured French, Spanish, these are considered the languages of love. They must have a better word than English. And it's interesting, Spanish uses a passive language, me gusta, that it pleases me, to describe liking something like chocolate or a toy or whatever you like. And when speaking about loving a person, it uses the active verb, amor, l'amour, to love. French does the same thing. In French, it's l'amour. So it suggests this active thing, that you're putting your effort forth. That's what you're doing. And the issue, I believe, is more than just the lexical. On a deeper level, the problem with the word love is suggesting a confusion with loving on a much broader cultural phenomenon. So we have to start off with a premise that perhaps what society has taught us about love, what we may know about love from just what we hear, is not at all what it really is. So tonight, I want to take a look at the Hasidic secrets, at the Kabbalistic secrets, and I want to apply them to love. I want to understand first who we are. I want to understand how to love ourselves. And then hopefully, as a result of loving ourselves, we can understand how to love someone else. So let's start with the fundamental question that is probably one of the most difficult questions for anyone to ask. Who am I? Your identity is going to begin with your personal narrative, the story that you tell yourself about yourself. But you're not a story that's just told. You're also a story that's felt. You are the embodiment of that story, and you're also the person telling that story. So think about it for a second. If I were to use that word love, however you know it today, do you long for love? Do you long for it? Most of us do. The intimate touch of another soul is the most powerful anecdote for the all too human experience of aloneness, of loneliness. I see that a lot right now with the isolation because of COVID, that a lot of people are seeing that loneliness and it's hurting them, it's bothering them to the point where they're wondering, is there something missing within me? So the first element of asking yourself, am I ready for a relationship? You have to ask yourself, is there something missing? Do I have something missing in my life? If I'm complete, if I have everything, then what is a partner going to bring into my life that I don't have already? I'm fine, I'm complete, I'm whole. What would a partner be able to give me? What would a spouse be able to give me that I can't get myself? So if there's something missing in our life, then we can say, well, what is that which is missing? And the truth is that experience of another could be the most compelling and pleasurable experience that there is, but it doesn't mean that I need it. Do I need it? I mean, we have to ask ourselves, am I avoiding something? Am I defending myself? Am I being angry? Am I being critical? Am I being too judgmental? Am I blocking experiences that I most deeply want? Remember, the same way we love ourselves more than anyone else, we also play a double standard with ourselves. We want to be close. We want to be embracing. We want to be connected. But then we judge. We judge something, we judge someone that comes our way, and we judge them. So it's there for us to experience. It's there for us to love. There's a reason why that particular experience or that thing came into our path. It's for a specific purpose. We have such a difficult time accepting it that we destroy it. I'll give you one of the classic examples that I could think of. In our society, when you say thank you, traditionally you say you're welcome. Now, in Yiddish, if someone says dank, thank you, what is the classic response? Nishta kein farvas, which means nothing to thank. That was the traditional flavor of the shtetl. That's terrible. Someone just thanked me for something I did, and I said there's nothing to thank. It's almost like I'm saying, what are you worth? Somebody went out of their way to thank me. I need to accept that thank you. I need to embrace that thank you. Nishta kein farvas, nothing to thank. What I did there is I destroyed their good deed. I destroyed their thank you. I said, your thank you. There's nothing to thank. It was worthless. What do I think I'm doing when I say there's nothing to thank? I think I'm being humble. But that's a sense of false humility. Kabbalah says, Chassidus says, that humility isn't, for example, when someone says thank you, say there's nothing to thank. That destroys the person who's thanking you. Not you yourself. That's deflection, not humility. So the Rebbe talks about this, and the Rebbe gives 4 prototypes for humility. And I'd like to talk about these 4 prototypes. They're biblical prototypes. And I think that through each of these prototypes, we can understand a little more about humility and a little more about ourselves. So the first person that the Rebbe talks of is a person by the name of Chanoch. Chanoch lived somewhere between Adam and Noach. He was the great, 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 great grandfather of Noach. He came into this world, a world that was pre-flood. So it was completely corrupt to such an extent that the flood was going to happen. and he wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. The Torah says he walked with God. He was a holy person. He was very connected to God, but not to this world. He said, you and me, God, just forget about the sinners. And God said, you and me? Okay. What did God do? He took him from this world early. Most people of his time, they died 600, 700, 800 years. He left this world at the relatively young age of 365. And the rabbis ask, the Rebbe asks, why so young? And the answer is because he was selfish. Selfish? What do you mean? He says, you and me, God. How could that be selfish? I thought he was holy. Because the Rebbe says he has no connection to this world. The purpose for us being in this world is to make this world a goodly and godly place, to make this world a home that Hashem loves, to bring this world and elevate it to a different state, not to spend our time removed from this world. That's not true spirituality. We have to be in this world and uplift it. But actually, to really make the world holy, what does that mean? It literally means to take trees from the earth, to take sulfur from the earth and put it together and make a book that we can study from. Literally to take the tree and elevate it to the point where the tree becomes higher than the tree. But before the tree could only be the best tree that it could be. And then we cut it down, which we think is not good, because cutting down the tree looks like it's destroying God's world. But what we did is we took the tree, we made paper from it, and we elevated that tree by making a holy book. And that's our purpose. Our purpose is to elevate this world. So Hanoch was selfish. He was selfish because he didn't want to elevate the world. He didn't want to make this world a place for God. The second prototype that the Rebbe brings is Noah. Think about it a second. Selfish or selfless? Well, let's understand Noah. He builds an ark. I'm sure you knew that one. He saves the world, supposedly, or all humanity. All humanity will be saved through Noah. How long does he spend building the ark? He spends 120 years building the ark. See, one element of the story that is not told is that God said, build the ark so that all of humanity can come on the ark with you. You have 120 years. Don't take 10 years, Noah. Take 120 years to build the ark so that you can tell the people the flood is coming and they can come with you on the ark. Now, think about it. I'm sure some of you have tried to convince others of the good and righteous path. In 120 years, you couldn't get one person to come on the ark with you. Not one person. If I gave you 120 years to convince people to come on the ark with you, you couldn't get one person? You know why Noah didn't get one person to come with him? He didn't care. All he cared about was his family. He just wanted to get his family on the ark. He said, the world is corrupt. My family, they're going to perpetuate the world. And so they did. So we think he's somewhat selfless. Well, he's not as selfish as Hanoch, but he's not selfless. Because his family, the Rebbe says, is just an extension of him. So selfless or selfish? Selfish. Not as selfish, a different level of selfish, because he's also including his family unit with him, but still somewhat selfish. Let's go to prototype number 3, Abraham, Avram. Selfish or selfless? I know what you're thinking right away. Of course, he's selfless. What does he do? He sets up a tent in the middle of the desert. It's open on all four sides. All the wayfarers going by, he's giving them food and clothing and shelter free of charge. I mean, how selfless can you be? There's nowhere else to get a meal. He's got a great restaurant going, a tavern. But there's a trick here. So people would finish having this great meal, and they had this great night's sleep. And then they would say, Abram, how much do I owe you? And he'd say, nothing. Nothing? I owe you nothing? No, well, there's one condition. I want you to pray to my God. But Avram, I got my own gods. I don't want to pray to your God. Okay, $1 million. It was blackmail. I mean, we have monotheism to thank for it. That was what his job was. His job was to bring monotheism into the world, and he did a good job at that. I mean, today, 4,000 years later, we can't even relate to that. Virtually, we can't relate to that. But we have monotheism today because of him. So Abraham did his job, and he's selfish to a selfless cause. You see, his deeds are just. He's not Hanoch. He's not Noah. But he is selfish towards God. Then we have the fourth prototype, Moses, Moshe. Selfish or selfless? So the Rebbe says Moshe is actually selfless. Why is he selfless? He's selfless not because he said, I'm too humble for that. Oh, dear God, I cannot take the Jews out of Egypt. That's not what he said. He didn't say, I'm a nobody, and how could nobodies take Jews out of Egypt? That's not selfless. There's a story told about a particular yeshiva. I figured since I'm talking to yeshiva, we'll talk yeshiva. And there's two students. They're sitting, it's late at night, they're sitting on two sides of the study hall, and one is screaming in Yiddish, Oy, ich bin a garnished, oh, I'm a nothing. And the other one is screaming on the other side of the study hall in Yiddish, Oy, ich bin a garnished, oh, I'm a nothing. And they're going back and forth, screaming, Oy, I'm a nothing, Oy, I'm a nothing, back and forth. A young student walks in, and he's very inspired by these two older students who are screaming in the study hall, oh, I'm a nothing. So he sits down, he closes his eyes, and he says, oh, I'm a nothing. The two of them look at each other and see, he's taka nothing. So that kind of false sense of humility, that's not what we're talking about. That's just low self-esteem. If you say, I'm too humble to do that, that's not humility, that's low self-esteem. Selfless is the words of Moshe. He says, God, I will do it. I will take the Hebrews out of Egypt. But I'm going to tell you one thing, dear God. I'm not the right guy for the job. If someone else were given my job, they'd be doing much better. But God, you gave me the job. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it the best I can do it. I can't speak. I burned my tongue when I was a kid. I can't talk. I can't do anything. I'm not charismatic. I'm just a simple guy. But if you want me to do the job, I'll do it. But I want you to know, dear God, I am not the best person for the job. And that is humility. Humility in our world, in our lives, is about the little Moses inside of us. There's a little voice that says, why are you involved in this? You're a little nothing. But there's a little Moses inside of us that says, I'll do the best I can with the talents that I have. I will do the best I can with the education that I have. I'll do the best I can with the resources I have. But let me tell you, if someone else was in my shoes, they would be doing a much better job. But I'll still do the best I can. I'll still move forward. I'll wake up in the morning with passion, with love, with excitement. I'll conquer the day in the most incredible way that I can, with the most enthusiasm that I could give to this day, because this day is the best day that's ever been given. And thank you, God. My favorite line of Moses is he says, a shepherd must die with his flock. My flock is going to stay in the desert, so will I. Humility is doing the best we can with the talents we have. We can't control others, but we can control ourselves. Then there's the ego. If we talk about who am I, we have to talk about the ego. The ego does not have the power to love. The ego can love how another person makes it feel, but it's not able to love. This ego-based identity that we have, it plays a very important role in human life, but it doesn't have the power to love, because ego is all about self. It can, and it does experience need, and need is often mistaken for love. But so the ego can love how another person makes it feel. It can love what you do for me. What am I going to get out of it? That's ego. The ego is always thinking about itself. It's looking out for number one, which I'm not saying is be a doormat, but be careful, because we often mistake that for love, and that's not love. A lot of people get into relationships thinking, what can I get out of it? If you're planning on getting into a relationship to see what you can get out of it, just stop before you start, because that's not what a relationship is. Because imagine this, if two people are in a relationship and they're asking, what can I get out of it? Well, they're both trying to get from each other and no one's giving. If there's no giving in the relationship, then there's no point here. There's nothing to give to. The ego says, how are you going to make me happy? True love, intimacy, doesn't come from the ego. In order to experience the power of true love, you have to get in touch with a different part of yourself. A part of yourself that lies beyond the ego. A part of yourself that doesn't ask, why are you going to do this for me? What am I going to get out of it? In our world today, we have a capital I disease. Every I, in the English language, I is the only letter that's always capitalized. It's the only letter that's actually really a word all on its own. Always capitalized. And so it's funny, right? So you want to have a lowercase I day, and if you're using Microsoft Word or you use Google Docs, and then you press spacebar, it auto-capitalizes it. It's like, I want to be humble, but the world is saying to me, oh, you want to be humble? We're going to show you what humility is. We're going to auto-capitalize you. Everything today is about the capital I. It's all about me and I. The whole world was created for me. It's about me and my problems. And if I'm going to be in a relationship with you, that's not I, that's you. I'm going to be in a relationship with you. And that, it has to be for me. And I have to get something out of this relationship. I challenge you. Do this for an hour. Do it for 10 minutes. Be conscious of how many times you say I. How many times you write I. Just think of it. Just a little challenge for you. Tomorrow, whenever. So back to this. The ego doesn't really exist. Now, the ego will function as if it's the most real thing about you. But in actual fact, your identity is only a perspective. Your identity is kept alive solely through the stories that you tell yourself about life, about others, and yourself. You can literally say that your ego is all talk. It's this incessant monologue whose sole purpose is to reinforce your sense of self who you are and who you aren't. That's all it's supposed to do. And most of the time, it goes something like this. I'm better than he is, and I'm uglier than she is, and I'm smarter than him, and I'm richer than her, and I'm worse than I should be, and I don't know, I could do this with me, I could never do this, I should never have done that, they shouldn't be that way, life is good, life is hard, he's right, she's wrong, I'm great, I'm no good, it's my fault, it's their fault. And we find ourselves kind of like these whales. You know how a whale moves? It creates this sonar where it kind of bounces the sonar waves off of the nearest land, the nearest object. That's how it's able to move, and it knows where it's going. So that's what we're doing. We're literally just navigating our lives based on external circumstances. We're not defining who we are based on our core essence, based on who we are. And the process continues because your identity has to be continually reinforced. Otherwise, you're going to quite literally lose a sense of who you are. There was a Chalm story. I'm sure you've heard Chalm stories before. So there's this Chalm story about this guy who never wanted to go to the mikveh. He never wanted to go to the bathhouse because he was afraid that if he took off his clothes, he'd forget who he was. So his friend comes to him and says, Yanko, I've got an idea. What's your idea? If you put a string around your leg, then when you take off your clothes and you go into the mikveh, you're going to remember who you are. Just look down at the string. He says, brilliant idea. So he's all excited. For the first time, he goes into the bathhouse. He takes off his clothes and he puts the string around his leg. And he's coming out of the water of the bathhouse. And he looks down and he sees the string is gone. Then he looks across and he sees his friend has a string around his leg, and he turns to him and he says, if you're me, who am I? And that's why I think it can be so threatening to have something or someone confronting your ego. Even when I'm talking like this, you may be threatened. And that's okay. Acknowledge that. Let it land. It's very hard. You know, a lot of people, they spend their time like this. They're just with their arms folded and they don't want to allow anything to let in because heaven forbid, should I allow something into my life? Should I allow influence from something outside of me? Because I obviously know everything that's going on. You see all those eyes I'm using? And so what we do is we don't allow influence. Instead of that, when we open up, we allow influence and we allow things to land. It's so important to allow things in our lives to land. Just let it land. See how it feels. We have this instant defense mechanism to push things away. For a change, what I'm encouraging you to do is try not to push it away. Try to let it land. Our ego is going to be made out of the beliefs, out of the perspectives, out of the opinions, the things that we're going to tell ourselves about ourselves. And if you identify your ego as you, when your beliefs become threatened, it can feel just like that. It's like a threat to your very survival, and you're like, whoa, get away. Quite simply, the more you get to be right about things, the more real and solid you feel. The more you're wrong, the more threatened you are. And that's why there's often conflict with people, because we all have this desire to be right all the time. Sometimes we have to say to the husbands, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? We're bouncing our lives off the world, not exactly sure where to go. We're taking opinion surveys as we go along. Oh, I think you're good. Okay, that makes me decent. Okay, I think you're bad. That makes me good. Okay, I think you're interesting. Okay, you're talking about something that makes a little sense to me, maybe not. And we're literally like bouncing this sonar off everyone instead of trying to find our essence, trying to find our core, trying to embrace each experience, each moment, each environment. So let's just say, for a moment, if for a moment you were able to say, I'm not part of myself. I'm not a product of social conditioning. I'm a balanced person. I'm definitely going to take my life experience, but I'm not going to wear it on my forehead. I'm going to take all of my life experience and I'm going to get myself a really nice cloth bag, kind of like those nice cloth masks that they have now. I'm going to take a really nice cloth bag and I'm going to put all of my life's experience into that bag. And I'm going to take a really nice thick string and I'm going to tie it around the bag. And then I'm going to take a stick and I'm going to put it through the bag and I'm going to throw it over my shoulder. And I'm going to carry it with me because it's very important. It's how I live my life. It's how I've learned through my life. It's how I'm going to create my heritage. It's how I'm going to build my future, my story, my narrative. But I'm going to leave it behind me, not on my forehead. And every so often, I'll take it from over my shoulder and I'll put it in front of me and I'll untie the little rope and I'll open it up and I'll see what's inside. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll close it up again. I'll tie the rope around. I'll put the stick through it and I'll put it over my shoulder. It's got to stay behind us, not in front of us. There is a psychologist. His name is William James. And he says that the story that you tell yourself is the me, and your embodiment of that experience is the I. That everything you experience, whether it be positive or whether it be negative, whether it's shame, whether it's this urge to escape or even an impulse, you're not only going to be lived and felt by you, but it's also going to be narrated by you to you in real time. So there are, according to social psychologists today, there's two facets of your identity. There's your core identity and your relational identity. This is a brand new field called relational psychology. And it's very much in line with Chassidus, about essence and about who we are. So the way that they actually, there's two different methodologies within it. One of it is my core, self and other and thirdness. And one is just who I am in my essence and then the other. So I'm just gonna talk about the core identity and the relational identity. Maybe in the future we can expand it a little more. So your core identity is going to be the spectrum of characteristics that are going to they're going to define you as an individual. They're going to define you as a Jew. They're going to define you as a Chassid. They're going to define you as whatever definition you create. Everything from your body, your personality, your occupation, your spiritual beliefs, your cultural practices. The world would spin into chaos if we didn't have a core identity. Could you imagine no culture, no names, no personality? Your core identity is the platform from which you synthesize your experiences into a coherent sense of self with both continuity and clear ideals. So if you feel confused about your identity, if you're unsure of who you are, if you're unsure what you stand for, then all of a sudden your decisions become problematic. And that gets us into what they call the multiplicity of identity. Your core includes your personal preferences. Like, do you see yourself as an American? For me, I'm living in Canada, Canadian, Israeli, Jewish, from secular humanist, atheist, whatever you see yourself, that's part of your core. You see yourself as a student, a child, a parent, a business person, a rabbi. You consider yourself a liberal, a conservative. Because you belong to multiple groups, you're going to have multiple social identities. So you may end up being a from Chassid, Jewish teacher that's conservative. And that's a multiplicity of identity. Now, when it comes to life and how you view your relationships, you have to decide which of your social identities you're going to prioritize. So you may have competing loyalties. You may have a competing loyalty between your faith, your ethnicity, your political convictions, and your citizenship, your nationality, because your religious identity feels most important to you, but you emphasize your national identity to fit in with your friends, or maybe even in casual conversation with a friend. You have to decide, am I going to talk politics, religion, work responsibilities, school? Am I going to, all those decisions are going to shape the contours of our identity. So how you identify yourself as a member of a specific group, or how others pigeonhole you, which probably happens like me, the yarmulke and a beard, all of a sudden you get pigeonholed, the Jew. The most meaningful aspects of your core identity are what I call the 5 pillars of identity. And that is the following: beliefs, rituals, allegiances, values, and emotionally meaningful experience. This is, if you want to know who am I, if you want to answer the question that we started off tonight with, who am I? You need to look at these 5 things. So the primary function of your core identity is to stay alive. It's not just to stay alive. It's to find meaning, to find purpose, to find belonging. So let's go through these 5 again. Beliefs, what are they? They're your convictions. They're your principles. They're your morals. Rituals, that's your customs. They're holidays. They're davening, prayer. They're Shabbos. They're dinner with family. Anything that's a ritual, an actual ritual. Then there's your allegiances, the deep feelings of faith that you had towards Hashem, the feelings you have towards a family member, feelings towards a friend, feelings towards a rabbi, an authority figure, a person, a place, a thing. These are all allegiances. How you feel when you go to the oil. These are all allegiances. Values. What are values? Values, they represent your ideals, which, by the way, values, unlike allegiances, need to be explicit and direct. They can't be vague. They can't be fluffy. They have to say, like, my value is the value in redemption that is told in the story of the Jewish people leaving Egypt. My value is the value of struggle. My value is the value of mitzvah. Whatever it is, it needs to be a very specific type of value. And even within mitzvah, let's say, if that's a value, it should be a value that is of a specific mitzvah as a value. And then number 5, emotionally meaningful experience. These are going to be these intense events, whether they're positive, unfortunately, sometimes they're negative, that are going to define part of your core identity. They're going to comprise of everything. The day that you uttered your first word and you learned to walk, to the moment maybe you were hit or something happened. Any emotionally charged moment is going to be part of your bank of emotionally meaningful experiences. And they're going to define part of your core identity. And there's no way you can change that. You're not going to be able to get rid of that, no matter what you do. Your core identity wants to stay intact. Your core identity is going to be resistant to change. It wants to stay true to your beliefs. It wants to stay true to your rituals, to your values. It's going to make you stubborn because it's your core. It doesn't want to be challenged. And then there's another part. There's a relational identity. Your relational identity is going to be the spectrum of characteristics that define your relationship with a particular person. When you're interacting with your spouse, at times you're going to be distant, and at times you're going to be closer. You're going to be constrained or free to be really as you are. Think about all your past relationships. I'm not even saying, hopefully none of you have had romantic relationships, but even relationships with your parents or grandparents or siblings or friends. Were you able to be yourself in those relationships? Do you feel stifled in them? Do you feel constrained? Are you able to develop an emotional closeness with someone else? So while your core identity is going to seek meaning in existence, your relational identity is going to seek meaning in coexistence. And it changes constantly as you grow and as you get older and as you mature. I want to finish off my formal part of this evening by saying two things. Number one, I told you that I would say, if you're from a divorced home, what do you do about it? And number two is I want to talk about how do you develop that relational identity. So, number one, if you're from a divorced home, you don't have any role models for relationships. And that's a problem. So you need to, A, figure out why your parents got divorced. Now, that's not only divorce. It could be that your parents were divorced in the house also. Like, there's a lot of families where the parents stay together, but they're really fighting the whole time, and they're not a role model for a relationship. So the first thing you have to do is you have to decide why they got divorced. How do you decide that? I know what you're thinking. You're going to say, I'm going to go ask my parents. Don't ask your parents, because it doesn't matter. It's your narrative. You have to decide, what is your narrative? Why do you think your parents got divorced? Whatever that narrative is, it's right. Then you have to say the following words: it's not my fault. Especially if your parents got divorced or they were fighting when you were young, you're going to think that it was your fault. It's not my fault. And the third is, you need to find what you're going to do differently, how you're going to change that. You have to actually think about what they did wrong and what you're going to do differently. Best would be is if you have a mashpia or a mentor or someone who you can say, this is the relationship that I want to mimic. This is my ideal relationship. And the second thing I want to talk about is the relationship itself. Since I decided to speak tonight about who am I, your relationship is going to start with you. And if you're not missing something, then you need to think to yourself, how do I find something missing in my life? And you may have to clear out half of your closet. You may have to sleep on one side of your bed. You may have to physically feel like there's something missing in your life in order to be able to achieve that. You have to get bored with yourself to the point where you don't want to live the way you are. There needs to be an intrinsic desire to have someone else in your life. Otherwise, you're just going to have this long laundry list of things that you want. And they're little things. I always say, if the singles only knew what was important in marriage, they'd have a whole different list. And we can talk about that perhaps a little later. There's a lot that we can speak about, but let's leave it at that, and we're going to go to questions. So that's the end of my the formal part of my talk tonight. Now I'm going to get to the questions. Oh, I've got a lot of questions here. Okay.
Just before we start with questions, would you prefer people are able to unmute themselves? And...
Oh, absolutely. I would rather people ask them in person. I mean, I'd rather have a conversation. Contrary to popular belief, I don't like monologues.
Okay, as far as I'm aware, okay, good, yeah.
Please. Before I get to the written questions, let's get to some of your questions in person. Yes.
Rabbi, I was actually wondering, personally, like, I always hear that like a person should not love the just the look of the woman, but then I always hear from a lot of people who are experienced in marriage, like, if you're on a shidduch and the woman is not appealing, don't go for her, but you do not go, but true love is not about the appearance. I just never understand what they mean.
Yosef, right?
Yes.
Yosef, it's a fantastic question, and I'm happy that you brought it up. Physical attraction is very important. You need to be physically attracted to. I think that in our society, there's two things. Number one is we don't know what we're physically attracted to, either because we have no experience or we have too much experience. So we're either unrealistic because we have no idea, or we're unrealistic because we have too much of an idea. So a picture, I mean, I don't know about you, I hate how I look in pictures. So if you're looking at a profile and a picture, I mean, if I had it my way, I would just set up blind dates the whole day, because I think this whole business with pictures does not make any sense to me, because you're basing your whole thing on a picture, and I know I don't look good in pictures, so I can't imagine what everybody else looks like in pictures. And number two is that physical attraction can grow with a personality. Now, I would say the following: do not get engaged to someone that you're not physically attracted to. But if you're not initially physically attracted, you can date them. That's okay. But if you literally, you're going on dates and things are going out, 9 times out of 10, I can tell you from experience, I don't know if you know who I am, or I don't know if you got any background on me, but just today, I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I set up 8 dates today, just today. So I can tell you from all over the spectrum of the Jewish world, I've seen it all. And I've seen people who never thought. Kindly repeat that from 30 seconds ago. What am I repeating? It broke up. Did I break up before? Aaron, is there a problem?
On my end, you were clear. It could be for some people it broke up. On my end, it was clear.
Okay, for some people it broke up. Okay, so I don't know where. So I was saying, number one is if you're physical attraction is important, but you can date someone that you're not initially physically attracted to, but don't marry them. Don't get engaged to them if you're not physically attracted. And we have to be careful with we so often we just look at this picture and we just put the person down. We're like, no way, this is not going to work for me because of a picture. So I think that we don't know about personality, and we have to give it more of a chance than we do. That's my answer to that. I mean, there's a lot more that I could say. I do have, if you want, you can email me or WhatsApp me. You have my WhatsApp, so you can email me also, rabbi@jewishmdg.com. Sorry, Rabbi, I'll put it here in the message thing. You can email me and I will send you, I have a bunch of exercises that you can do. And one of my favorite exercises that I give to singles is an exercise that helps you get to know what you're looking for outside of just the physical. And I can send that to you. You can do that yourself on your own time. Any other questions? That's it? Okay, let's go to the written questions. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay, Benjamin?
Yes, I have a question about this.
Yes, please.
So when it comes to the shidduch process, so do you have your mashpia match you up? How does that actually work?
What you want in the shidduch process is you want 3 people. They all have a very important role in your process. You need a matchmaker. There are many different types of shadchanim. You can go find out. There's tons of people that are able to make matches out there. You need a matchmaker. You need a mashpia. Your mashpia's job is not to match you up. Your mashpia's job is to be a sounding board and give you good advice through the process, because what happens when you're dating is your emotions are flying and there's it's all over. You're all over the place. You need someone to give you to settle down.
Right. And are there any recommendations for finding matchmakers?
I'm sure other people here have recommendations for matchmakers. If you're asking the question, it's that difficult, I'm happy to help you if I can. I don't consider myself a matchmaker, but I definitely do a lot of setting up of people. So if you want, you can email me and I'll direct you how to do that, how I work.
Okay.
And the third person, so you want a matchmaker, you want a mashpia, and you want a friend. There can also be a sibling or a parent, but somebody who you can actually be on the same level with and you can bounce your feelings off of. So different than your mashpia who you're taking advice from, this is a person who's on your same level. Those 3 people are very important, and nobody else. It's not a survey. Don't ask everyone. 3 people should know about your dating, and that is it.
It should just be one friend.
One friend, that's it. One good friend who cares about you. Now you have to be careful about that friend, because sometimes friends are biased because they don't want to lose you as a friend. They think if you get married, they're going to lose you as a friend. And they don't even realize it could be subconscious. So be careful with the friend that you choose. Make sure they really want you to get married. Make sure they really, truly care about you, not about just themselves.
Okay.
Good question, Benjamin. Thank you. Okay, what else?
Yeah, Rabbi.
Yosef.
I am also from Montreal.
Hey, what's up, Yosef? What's going on?
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to know, is it normal to be scared to get married?
Oh, yeah. If you're not scared, I would say that there's probably something wrong with you.
Like, if you're like very, like, you know that after the wedding, your life changes.
Dude, it's a big deal. It's like the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your entire life. Why would you not be just berserkers about it?
But you have to be excited that you're getting married, and you have to be afraid at the same time.
Well, it's probably because you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know who you are. Like, just get in touch with yourself. Let things land. I mean, allow things to be within yourself. I mean, it's okay to have those emotions, but you also have to make sure you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Sorry if I touched a chord there. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, Rabbi, it's okay. Rabbi, I'm Moroccan. I know it's
Okay, I know.
Yeah,
Bro, it's all going to be good.
yeah, Montrealers for life.
For life. What else?
Rabbi, I actually had another question.
Before you ask that question, I want to see if we can get to some others, but we'll come back to you when we have other questions. Anyone else who didn't have a chance, and then we'll come back to people who already had a chance. Because I know the introverts are all going to write it. See, there's introverts and extroverts, right? So the introverts are all going to write it down, and they're going to be scared to ask it. You can ask it. You can send it to me privately in my. Oh, I have a bunch of questions here. Good. In my WhatsApp. So don't worry, introverts. I'm going to get to you in a minute. Any more extroverts that don't feel shy asking? I'm not too scary, I promise. Okay, let's go to some of your questions. I'm first going to go to the Zoom questions, then I'll go to the WhatsApp questions. Love the sound of the, okay. When is it the right time to look to get married? Ask your mashpia that question. I don't think that's unfortunately, because of the nature of this class, I have to create, generalizations. I don't like generalizations because each person is different and each person is unique. So if you have someone who knows you well, who you can bare your soul with, which is a very important thing, to have some kind of mentor you can bare your soul with, that person will tell you that it's your time. What does Shemona Esrei L'chuppah mean for our generation? What does 18 years old for chuppah mean? So it's a similar thing. I mean, today we are desensitized. We're in a society that is so confusing, and we get so many mixed messages coming from so many different places. So I think that we don't know exactly what that means. And so therefore it's important that we have someone. It's invaluable to have someone who you can bare your soul to. And if you're not comfortable with a rabbi, get yourself a therapist. That's okay too. A frum therapist. If you need a recommendation for a frum therapist, I'll give you one. I know a couple of very good frum therapists. How much Torah is it necessary to know before you get married? Well, you need to know the whole Talmud inside out. You need to make sure you cover all of Chassidus, and you might as well download Rambam and all of the Shulchan Aruch, and then maybe you can get married. How much Torah you have to know. If you know Aleph, you can get married. I hope everybody here knows Aleph. If you don't know Aleph, learn Aleph and then get married. I have a secular concept.
Is there any connection though? I mean, I think he's asking because I'm assuming there's a connection between like learning Torah and getting Jewish marriedly.
Yeah, I mean, this is a mashpia question. This is a personal question. I have a hard time with these general. I don't want to give you generalizations because it's not going to help you. You know how people take all these generalizations now. Oh, this must mean that this is for me. It's not for you. Find someone who you can bare your soul with, and then you can start making generalizations. This is just good ideas that I have. These are things that I can tell you from my experience. But questions like that need to be directed to somebody who knows you, who you can bare your soul to. The next question is, I have a secular concept of what love is. What is the Jewish concept of love, both high level and practically? It's a very, very big question. I mean, I think I addressed it quite extensively in my talk tonight. But if you still don't understand that, I have a book that's coming out soon called Why Bother Getting Married? And in that, I have an entire section that talks about the difference between secular concept of love and the religious concept of love, and what's important to help people get their bearings straight. It's actually made for people who are trying to find that kind of direction in their life. I'm going to skip some of these questions because I don't think they're for the public consumption. How are we supposed to look at the parts of Kabbalah that suggest that incorrect conduct in the bedroom hurts with the would-be children in a healthy way? It's a great question. I think that it's really important, if you're engaged and you're looking for a chassan teacher, that you find a good chassan teacher. I can tell you, when I got married, I had a really bad chassan teacher, and it really affected me negatively. And I find a lot of people, I've had to undo a lot of stuff. And so I think this is a question that is an important question that must be directed to your chassan teacher before you get married, and you must get good answers, because there's amazing answers to it, but it's not something I would want to give you in 30 seconds. It's a conversation that you need to have. That's a very powerful, deep conversation. It needs to be over a nice glass of wine and be done in a way that is proper. To the person, Gabriel, that you say that you prefer ice cream, you may be single for a long time. How much of the shidduchim process is flexible? Well, I think it's all flexible because it's based on every individual. I don't know what that means, flexible. I mean, I don't know what you're referring to, if, you know, the shidduchim process, whatever that means, or whatever you think it means. It's not a linear process. It's a fluid process. So I don't see why it wouldn't be completely flexible.
So to clarify my question, do I need to go specifically through a rabbi as a shadchan? Do I need to go through a professional shadchan? Can I use a friend? Can I meet someone at a Shabbos table? Like what's...
Kev, I want to tell you a secret. Most shidduchim today, even in the Frum community, in the Lubavitch community, are made from friends setting up friends. I still think you need to have a shadchan in the process, helping you, having a mashpia, having somebody who can help you in the process. But most shidduchim that are happening in the Frum world today are not happening through shadchanim. They're happening through friends. So it's a fluid process. It's not a linear process at all. Yes, why can't you meet somebody at a Shabbos table? That sounds wonderful to me.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Isn't it a more direct way of saying that it's pleasure? Oh, that must have been in the middle of my talk, and I'm sorry about that. And this one also is from my talk. I'm sorry, I didn't see it during my talk. I was kind of in my zone. Okay. Here's a private question someone just asked me, and that is, which is more detrimental to yourself and children, an actual divorce or remaining in a bad marriage, barring physical, sexual abuse? As we are trying to figure out our way out of our parents' divorced or decide to remain married for our children, what is the actual better decision for the children's future relationship? It's a really good question. Again, I'm only going to generalize here, and I keep on saying I'm generalizing because every situation is different. I'm happy that you parentified the bearing physical and sexual abuse, because physical and sexual abuse has no place in a marriage. So that's divorce prone. But everything outside of that, there's different reasons why parents stay divorced. The questions that you're asking yourself as a child of a divorced family are very different than what the questions your parents and why your parents would remain or not remain in a relationship. That's their business. That's not even your business. That's why it said, don't even ask them, because it's not your business. What's your business is, if you don't like your parents' marriage, then you need to figure out why in yourself, talk to your therapist, talk to your mashpia, and then you need to figure out what you're going to do, literally practical steps that you're going to do not to repeat that. Otherwise, you will repeat that because your default setting is that. So you will repeat it if you don't figure out a way not to repeat it. Here's another private message. Younger women and older men. I'm 55 and she's 38. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I wrote a whole chapter on it in my new book. I'm going to leave it. If you want, send me Yonatan. Where is it? Where is it? Anyway, whoever you are, send me an email and I'll send you that chapter. And if you have any more questions, I'll send you a voice note as well. Next question.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 sec?
Yeah, sure.
So my question before about the correct conduct in the bedroom, I was thinking, like you did mention that we should find a chassan teacher and ask this like in a real in-depth way. And you're totally right. I 100% agree with that. But we do learn, like most people here, everybody here learns chitas to some extent.
Right.
And we learn that part of chitas, like Tanya mentions it. So is it possible that you could give us some kind of explanation about how to look at that?
That's
Tanya that mentions it.
Jonathan, that's exactly why I think you need to have a good chassan teacher, because you need to unlearn a lot of stuff. I don't want to generalize that for you. I can give you wonderful, beautiful answers, but that's not going to help you in the bedroom. So
okay, so maybe if you can keep it theoretical, I guess right now, just so, I mean, obviously it's very important to know how that practically applies to our life, but I'm saying next time I go through that part of Tanya, what am I supposed to think?
What are you referring to?
There's I guess I'll let the rabbi say.
I'd rather stay away from it, because I'm not saying that there's a lot of stuff throughout rabbinic literature. It's not only Tanya, Chassidus, and Kabbalah. I mean, there's so many. Chassidus uses the male-female relationship as the ultimate analogy for our relationship with Hashem. So I would say generally, think of your relationship with Hashem and use that as an analogy. How about that?
Okay, I'll take it for now.
I know you're not satisfied. I wouldn't be satisfied either, but I really, really think that this is something that is for a very good chassan teacher or a good mashpia. It's a great question for a mashpia, because obviously if it's landing within you in a certain way, and it bothers you a certain way, then you don't let it fester. Deal with it, but deal with it on a personal level. I'm proud of you for being able to bring it up in a public forum, because maybe it'll affect other people. But I'm also hesitant to I'm not trying to deflect it. I'm hesitant to answer it because it is a really personal thing, and I think it should remain personal. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Judaism and the way we look at these things, is that they're deeply beautiful, they're deeply holy, and deeply personal.
Okay, I appreciate that. Cool, thanks.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through some of the questions that I have here. Let's go back to 728. Okay, how can one improve on being more selfless and less self-centered in a relationship? Well, I think I addressed that quite well in my talk tonight, and if I didn't, let me know and I will clarify if you have a specific question on that, not just the vague question. Okay, next one. Should one delay marriage for smicha? That is a question for a mashpia. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. In general, the Rebbe would say not to delay marriage for smicha, but sometimes there's situations would arise where people would. These are all really good questions, and make sure that it's someone who you don't just ask. Asking a mashpia is not a survey. Asking a mashpia is finding someone who you can bare your soul to. And it's hard. It's very hard today, because even though the Rebbe said a Seilach Harav and people make themselves available, it's hard. You don't want to take up their time. There's problems. I understand all those things, and I'm sympathizing with you. It's very hard to find a good mashpia, someone who you can really bare your soul to. But if you're in yeshiva, you have that advantage of having the extra time to find somebody who you can speak to. I hope I didn't miss any of them. Okay. Does one need to accept all the Hasidic minhagim before getting married in the Chabad Lubavitch dating world? Again, a great question for a mashpia. What I will say on a general level is that every person is unique. And all is a big word, a very big word. I don't know if people who accept all minhagim even accept all minhagim. It's a really big word. So let's keep the extreme words out. Most, if you're a Chabad and you want to date in the Chabad world, then probably you're going to want to take on some, make sure that you have an understanding of Chabad minhagim, yes. But then again, I think everyone should experience and talk to the person who they can bear their soul to. Okay, a couple questions here. How do I know if I'm ready to date? How can I differentiate between growth that will happen because of dating in marriage versus growth that is a prerequisite? That is a really, really great question. I cannot answer that in 30 seconds. What I will say is, to the person who asked that question, I'm going to send you, I have 2 exercises that will work very, very well with trying to figure out. Number 1 is the exercise I'm going to send you. Well, I have your number here, so I'll send it to you, about making your list and knowing who you're looking for. And the second exercise that I would send you is an exercise that was developed by a psychologist named Gordon Alport, who I actually changed it and made it a little more, Hasidic and for us. And that is called the Big Five, and understanding the elements of your personality, which is a different conversation that we can have at a different time, is how to understand that. But that's a really great question, and I appreciate that. How much affection should children see between parents? Should they see any at all? Isn't lack of setting them up bad examples for sexuality, being that they were surrounded by such negative examples? My answer that I give to young couples is, if they see you fighting, they should see you loving. I don't mean literally, but they should see you being affectionate towards each other. If you have no problem your kids seeing you fighting in front of your kids, then you should have no problem the opposite in front of your kids as well. If you don't fight in front of them, that's fine. Some parents are very good at that. Some people don't have that kind of self-control, so therefore you should balance that off and they should see both. As a Bachar Yeshiva, what is the correct way to look at our sexuality? It's a fantastic question. And once again, I would be wrong to generalize that. I mean, sexuality is so different for different people, and you need to have someone. I would say that's a really great question for a frum therapist that you are in touch with. If you're going to see a frum therapist, that would be a really good question for a frum therapist, because there's extreme things and we want to kind of stay balanced. There are things that women look for. Should I focus more on myself? Is there a balance between the two best? So that exercise that I'm going to send you, if you send me an email or a text, I will send that exercise. That will help you understand what you're looking for and what the other's looking for as well. It's a balanced exercise. Okay. Can you send me the exercise? Absolutely. Thank you for sending me that text. I will send you the exercise. Those are all the questions. Are there any more here? Yes, someone just asked, can I discuss the terms meeting versus dating? Dating is anything more than meeting, which means I don't like using the word dating for a first date. It's a meeting. It's a first meet. When you meet somebody for the first time, you're meeting them. Dating is when you actually start developing an emotional reaction to that person, an emotional experience with that person. Do potential spouses need to be on the same level of religious observance? It's a very big question. It's a personal question. If I have to generalize it, I hate generalizing it, but if I have to generalize it, I would say better she be more religious, because she will bring up, generally speaking, the woman will bring up the relationship. If he's more religious and she's not, he will end up going down. Again, that was a generalization. How important is it to have similar background with your spouse? What we're looking for in our relationships is not differences, it's similarities. So the more similarities we have, the more connection points we have, the more attraction we're going to have. Now, there's some people who emit high levels of electromagnetic energy. Those people are more, as they call, attractive. But we're not looking for someone who's more attractive. We're looking for someone who's more attractive to us. So that person who's more attractive to us is going to be someone who's going to have similarities with us. We said a relationship is not about excitement, but it should be some kind of level of excitement, how important it is. The excitement, if you're someone who's in touch with your emotions, the excitement is going to come naturally. Don't worry about trying to find excitement in your relationship. If you're not, if you're a very, very intellectual and you're really cerebral and you're not in touch with your emotions, then I would say that it's a good time to get in touch with your emotions. And you may want to do what the Rambam says, go to the opposite extreme and find your emotions, or maybe you should have a couple l'chaims before your date, something like that, to be able to get in touch with your emotions. But most people are going to have those emotions naturally, and they don't have to look for them. Send me the balance exercise. Leon, I think that's your name. Send me an email or a WhatsApp, and I'll send it to you. Just don't put it here because I'm not going to have access to this in a few minutes. Should some people with intermediate emotional issues not get married? I don't know what that means. That is, I think, a question for a therapist. There are some times that people have to deal with various emotional issues before they get married. There's processes that people have to do. And therapy would be a good thing. So if you're asking the question, it means that you probably have a reason to ask it, and I would say therapy would be very good for that. What's the role in having a life plan in shidduchim? I don't know. Generally, women like to see that men are going somewhere. I don't know if you necessarily have to have a life plan. A direction is good. Life plan sounds very big. Sounds like you're watching too much Tony Robbins, or I don't know what that is. Have a direction. Have a direction that you're going in. What exactly is the explanation for that which they say polar opposites are often a good match? So if you look at the big five, does anyone ever just look up the big five personality? You're going to see there's 5 things. I'm not going to give it to you. It's scientific, but there's 5 things. And what's going to happen naturally in a spousal relationship is, so basically the way that we test the big 5, if you want, literally just Google it as I'm talking to you. I'm not going to explain all of them. So you can just Google the big 5 personality things. You'll see they'll come up. And so the way that we address it, there's 0 to 40. So you're going to have 2 extremes. Okay. So like, for example, one of the big 5 is extrovert and introvert. So there's going to be, now it's rare. I've seen it, but generally one spouse is going to be somewhere between 0 and 20 on one spectrum, and somewhere between 20 and 40 on the other spectrum, which means one spouse will be more introverted and one will be more extroverted. Makes sense. If you're both introverts, which does happen occasionally, then you're gonna not want to be out at all. And if you're both extroverts, you're never going to stay in. So you need to have a balance in your relationship. Remember, you know this already. I didn't bring it up because I know you know all this, that you're 2 halves of a whole. So we're looking for the other half, which is the complement. So if I'm an extrovert, I'm probably going to look for an introvert. If I'm an introvert, look for an extrovert. And there's 4 more like that. Assertiveness versus lack of direction. I'm sure I see some of you looking them up right now. So I would encourage you, I'll send you, if you want, when you send me the email or the text, I will send you, I have another exercise that I created that would allow you to see the big 5 and how they work for you. And then you can see what you're missing and what kind of person you're looking for. Let me see. Is it important to be financially stable before marriage? Some people want to be financially stable before marriage. I think that the bracha of financial stability will come with marriage. The Rebbe said that, so I believe that happens to a lot of people. You get what you need, and the bracha will come, but you still have to make a keli for it, obviously. But the bracha will come. Okay, a lot of people asking me for the exercises. Fantastic. Anything else? Or are we good? Did we solve all the world's problems in one night? Look at that. This is fantastic. That's it. Okay, if that's it, then, we have another one coming in. Why is it that if from pre-war marriages at times happen without a husband or wife meeting before? Is that more the way? We live in a different time. I'm sorry. If you want to go to interwar Europe, you can go there, but it's not possible. It's not possible. We have too much influence. The internet destroyed us, and we have to be realistic about that. It's not going to happen like that anymore. And I don't suggest that happening. I know in certain communities it happens. I don't suggest it. Could you touch on dealing with disagreements in a relationship? I don't know exactly what you're referring to as disagreements, but definitely. So one of the things that I do, and I'm very passionate about, it started off about 10 years ago. I was standing at a chuppah about to make a bracha on the marriage. I had the cup of wine in my hand. And I look up at this beautiful couple. And I look down at my cup and back up at the beautiful couple. And I think, I'm about to make a bracha on their marriage. What did I do to deserve to make that bracha? Because I learned about how to do a wedding? Because I wrote a ksubah, because I checked their Jewishness, their yadus? That's why I deserve? I did nothing to help this couple get married. Nothing. And I'm about to make a bracha on their union, and I did nothing to help them. The divorce rate is more than 50%, so the odds of them staying married is less than the odds of them getting divorced. And I did nothing to help them. And I believe that myself and any other rabbi is the first line of defense against divorce. And we need to give young couples, when they get married, or older couples, a toolbox that couples can go to. So what I do with all the couples that I marry, and thank God I've had quite a few weddings now, is I somewhere between 6 and 8 sessions, and I give them tools to be able to have a successful relationship, healthy and successful relationship. I decided at that moment on, it took a while. I was shocked that there wasn't something that already existed. There isn't a program that exists. So I've had to kind of ad-lib it. I'm hoping at some point to make it a little more formal. I actually, I just signed a contract with a publisher for, so I just submitted my first book called Why Bother Getting Married? And then I have a second book that's also under contract, and it's going to be called We're Engaged, Now What? And it's going to be a specific book just for engaged couples. And I'm dealing with that. And so about disagreements, you need to have a communication tool that you use. There's so many great communication tools, but part of that premarital work that you'll do with your spouse, God willing, is you'll make sure that you develop a communication tool between yourselves. Like one typical communication tool, I'll just give you an example, is active listening is a communication tool. You can look it up. So you just need to have a different communication tools that you can develop between yourselves. And then you'll be able, any disagreement is not a disagreement, because little disagreements will become big disagreements very quickly. What is the best place to look when searching for a shidduch? All over the world, from communities, somewhere within your own community? Gosh, wherever Hashem wants you to. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow wherever you're led. There's so many options now. Do you guys not know? It sounds like there's a few people having trouble. If you're having trouble finding a shidduch, just message me. I will direct you. I'll give you a bunch of options of what you can do. There's so many options, especially in the Chabad community now, to be able to find someone. You should not be having trouble finding someone. And if you are, I will solve that problem. I'm not guaranteeing I can find someone for you, but at least solve the problem that you'll know how to find someone. How much privacy should be kept between the husband or wife, or between themselves? Should there be no privacy? Rather, they should share everything between each other. So what I say to couples is that everything before your marriage can be private, but everything in your marriage has to be kept. It's the two of you against the world. So you must develop a mutual voice, a shared voice, and you cannot have secrets, because secrets, even if they're subliminal, they're going to come out. They're going to come out. Can I explain B'Kitzur about this toolbox? God willing, You're going to find yourself a beautiful kala, whoever you are that asked that question. And when you do, you'll call me up and I will give you the toolbox. And by then, which could be probably in about 3 weeks, I will have at least my rough draft of my book, We're Engaged Now What? And I'll even send you the rough draft. It should be ready in about 3 weeks. Meaning each spouse is not telling the other certain things. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that's not proper communication practices. And you need proper communication practices. And you have to start off. Starting off with lying, you're starting off with hiding, it's only bound to make problems. Great problems. Can you discuss why marriage is so rarely talked about in yeshiva? And Kabbalah hints to being a very direct mashal for Hashem and the Jews. So just because it's a mashal doesn't mean that it should be talked about. It's not necessary. Why should you put all these people in harm's way when it's not necessary?
Why is that putting people in harm's way?
What?
Why is that putting people in harm's way?
It's putting people in harm's way because when you're in yeshiva, you're supposed to be focusing on learning. It's your one time in your life that you shouldn't be focusing on girls. So why should you start, creating these emotional feelings within a person when they're not ready for it? I'm not saying don't talk about anything, but I'm assuming if you have a mashpia, that's something you talk about with your mashpia. I mean, that's if you have someone that you can bare your soul to, then that's what you talk about.
Okay, thanks.
According to the Torah, are husbands equal, or is the husband the giver and the wife receiver? I don't know if that's a loaded question or not. It sounds like a loaded question to me. If whoever sent that to me privately, if you want to clarify the question, I will answer it.
Yeah, are husbands and wives equal according to Torah, or there is one like the mashpia, one's the makabel?
Mashpia makabel is an analogy, and it's a euphemism, and it's a physical element of marriage. But I mean, I hope that my wife is better than me. That's what I hope. Equal, no. Mashpia makabel, no. But better, yes.
I mean, like according to Torah, is the husband like the ruler, sort of like the one in control who's more the one controlling the house, something like that? The wife has to.
Sometimes the husband wants to think that, but is it true? I don't know. Some women are very good at helping their husbands think that, and some are more in their face, and their husbands know that they're not. Either way, I don't want to be the ruler of my house. I don't know about you.
So that definitely makes sense, but it seems to be suggested in a lot of halachic sources in the Gemara that the man is in charge, or at the very least, like one can look at all these sources and think that. So what do you have to say to that seeming contradiction?
I think that if you think it's a contradiction, then you've never experienced real life marriage. I had a lot of theories about marriage before I got married, and now I'm married and have no theories.
So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Obviously, I don't believe this, but are you suggesting that the people that they're the like rabbis in the Gemara and who wrote halacha never fully experienced marriage?
Well, not at all. I'm just saying that we will create that narrative how we want to. We will view the narrative how we want to. We will interpret it how we want to. And often it's not about the rabbis of the Talmud at all. It's about us. And if we don't have that kind of experience behind us, then we don't really understand it. My kid comes home from school and says, "Did you know, Tati, that Avram knew Sarah?" Wow. So the kid experiences Avram knowing Sarah in that way. We all know what that means when the Torah is saying Avram knew Sarah. But it's not a place or time for a kid to know what that really means, because they're not emotionally developed yet to be able to know that.
Right. What I'm more asking is, like, there seems to be a lot of parts of Yiddishkeit that at the surface. Give me a
specific example. If I can answer if it's a specific example. I don't like generalizations. I don't like just answering open things, because then we're all like fluffy diggy. I don't want to be fluffy.
Yeah, so I definitely hear that. All right, I'm going to try to give you the best example that comes off the top of my head because I don't really have any sources prepared at the moment.
Mhm.
But the concept of, let's say, for example, a saita and all the halachas that go along with that.
Oh, but they're right in the
A
parsha.
person, well,
You're like right in the parsha. You know,
so
you know what it was this week's parsha, or you just were doing it randomly?
I have not got to that part of Chumash yet.
Okay. Well done.
But
Well done, sir.
I guess that means it's the Shema.
It was Shema.
So a lot of halachas with soita seem to imply that the man has a higher position than the woman is more suspect than the man. There's a lot of seemingly sexist things that are in soita. I don't believe that personally, but like, what do you say?
I think that if you're talking about that, you have to look, the Rebbe has some very beautiful ways of looking at it that perhaps other Torah commentaries don't look at the same way. About the Saita and the power of the Saita. And, I think that was one of the great advantages of the Rebbe's. I think so much about how the Rebbe really transformed all of these villainous and sexist and all these ideas in the Torah and showed Korach, who was seen as this megalomaniac and this eccentric and this guy, going against, talking about nepotism with Moshe and Aaron. It's going to be in a few weeks. We're going to talk about it. Here, this Korach, what does the Rebbe say? He was an activist. he was marching, he was protesting, but he was just premature. The world wasn't ready for it yet. So I think that there's two ways of looking at everything. You can look at it linear or you can look at it fluid. What I would do is I would take a look at the Torah and try to find your commentary and try to find the answers instead of being critical of it. Try to find the answers within it. I'm not going to answer to the Sota specifically because it's a good example. I'm not going to answer it specifically right now because I'd rather have a bunch of books open in front of us when we did it instead of just doing it off the top of our head, if that's fair to you.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a great example, and it's a great question. If you're talking about sexism in the Torah, then there's a lot that needs to be clarified. Absolutely. Child rearing, medical philosophy are topics I hear discussed when people are trying to find the shidduch. Please discuss matching worldview and preferences. Yeah, you need to really have a good matchmaker or a good mashpia. If you have a medical issue or if you have all these things, these are things, I can't give you a 30-second answer to this. It wouldn't be fair. But these are things that you should think about. Absolutely. Do you have to have it all figured out before you get married? I don't know. I mean, if you have a medical condition, that's a different story. But if you have a medical philosophy or child rearing, these are things that you should have an idea. Again, I told you, I had a lot of theories about marriage, and then I got married and had no theories. So, you can have an idea of it, but then real life happens and you don't have so many ideas anymore. You just have real life. I think there's another question here. I'm gonna ask the question so you can somebody asked this question, and I think it's a fantastic question. Is birth control allowed when one can't provide, whether financially or emotionally, or should one have as many children as possible, being negligent about their well-being? I understand it's a loaded question. This is why you need a good chassan teacher. You need a good rav and a good person that you can talk to. These are very important questions. If you're asking it, you don't have to be facetious about it. This is a real thing. It happens very, very real to people, and there's answers to that question that need to be personal and should not be generalized at all. And the Torah is not here to make your life miserable. It's to make your life better. And remember that.
Rabbi, I was just wondering, how important is it to be representable when you're on a shirtei?
Very. Don't look like a schlump. Very important. Very important.
Again, to play devil's advocate, let's say that the person does look like a schlump. That's who they are. Are they faking it when they look nice on a date?
No, they just haven't had a woman's influence yet. So
Okay,
pretend.
good answer.
Someone else had a question that I stopped them before. I apologize. I forgot who you were, but if you asked me a question and I said I'll come back to you when everyone else asks, it's a good time to ask the question now. Okay. That was Joseph. Was that Joseph? Was that you? Okay. Okay. Anything else? I'm happy. I'll answer your questions. I freed my schedule. This is vacation for me. I love it. Like I don't get this kind of easy free time, right?
Oh wait, I have a question.
Mhm.
I have a question about laws of family purity. So is that something that should be learned before you actually start dating, or like when you like get married?
The laws of family purity should be learned with a chassan teacher, with a special teacher after you get engaged. You should find somebody. There are people who do it, and if not, you should find someone you know that could teach you properly. And so I don't think it's necessary to learn before dating. It's not going to help you at all with your dating. But definitely you should learn it before you get married.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question. Okay. Zeb, since you want the questions, why don't you be the last person to ask the question? Unless someone
I'm
else.
trying to think of them. I'm trying to think of them.
Okay.
I need help.
I'm not going anywhere. This is, you guys know where to find me now. I'm not going anywhere. If you want, I'm giving, if you want, you can go on my Facebook page. I don't know if you have this Sefer Panim, this Facebook. But if you do, then if you go to Rabbi Yisrael Bernath, I'm giving classes all the time. I have a class. I give classes on relationships every single week. Next Wednesday, I have a free class that I'm giving on infatuation. I'm going to go through the 5 levels of infatuation. So I'm constantly, I have a podcast. I have a few podcasts, but I have one that's specifically about relationships. And a lot of the classes that I give are on that podcast. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not hard to get a hold of.
Definitely going to check that out.
And you're welcome to check it out. I have a regular column that appears in the Jerusalem Post and in a bunch of Anglo-Jewish newspapers across the country that's full of questions and answers that people ask me on relationships. You can look on the Huffington Post or on Medium if you have a Medium account. And you can find that also. And there's a documentary that came out recently about me. So you can look at that as well if you chas v'shalom watch films. Not going anywhere. What's a good marriage? What are we aiming for? How do we develop a goal? Wow. That's a lot of question. Anything specific? Like when you ask what's a good marriage, what are you thinking? See, can I pry you a little bit, whoever that person is that asked me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you're just asking for the, okay. So, like, what are you asking? What are you really asking?
First of all, is there such a goal? I mean, is it just you go in and you follow all the steps and there's no goal? You just do what you have to do at the moment, and eventually that's however it develops is how it's meant to develop. Is there a goal?
The goal is to have a mutual voice. It's to have someone who can give you the most meaningful thing that you can ever have in the world, and that's unconditional love. Someone who could think you're the greatest thing that ever happened since sliced challah. That's all we want. And that's what intimacy is. That's what an emotional relationship is. Someone who can really say, I am the greatest thing that ever happened to the world. I could say it to myself all day, but I don't believe it. But if I have a wife who says it, I feel like $1 million. So it's about creating that mutual voice, and that's something that takes time. The number one most important thing in marriage is trust. There's different levels of trust. There's 18 months, there's 3 years, there's 7 years, but real unconditional trust takes around 7 to 10 years. And it's built up over time. What do you think is the number one ingredient in a long-lasting relationship that a new couple needs to know?
Don't freak out.
Hmm?
Don't freak out. Let this blow over.
Well, that's a good thing. Like, you should know that you're not the only one. This is normal. A lot of the stuff that you're going through is normal. Yeah, that's definitely, that's a good thing, but that's not the number one important ingredient. Does anyone have any idea what the most important ingredient in a long-lasting and healthy relationship is?
Hashem Yisbarach.
Hashem Yisbarach, Hashmul, look at that. The real, true faith. Power to ya. Anyone else?
Appreciation.
Rabbi, before, is this question time or?
What do you, no? What's the number one ingredient?
Your best friend.
What?
Best friends, partner.
Yeah, best friends, partner. That's a great one. You want to be best friends, partner, your sister?
No.
Yeah. No, not a sister. Yeah, best friends is nice. Not number one.
Same goals.
Similar goals, similar direction, yeah. By the way, it's more important for the person who asked about shared background and similarities. It's more important to have a shared destination than a shared background and similarity. Studies have shown that is much more important in a long-lasting relationship.
I think selflessness, you said it before. I think selflessness will protect you from any danger that might come out of a disagreement.
Absolutely. So selflessness is very important, Zev. Not number one, but it's very important, and definitely that selflessness coming along with giving 100% of yourself to the other instead of, creating a tit for tat. By the way, I have 2 lists that I created. If you look up my name, you're going to get 10 Jewish dating secrets. I have 10 Jewish dating secrets, and then I have 10 secrets for newly engaged or newly married couples. And I have 2 different lists that I made. So you can look that up. It's on CBC's website.
Trust.
Trust is good. Trust is, like I said, trust is the most important, Benjamin, for long lasting, but trust takes 7 to 10 years. What about today? What do you need to know today? What's the most important ingredient in a long lasting relationship today?
Your focus on growth, development.
Focus on growth. Again, shared destination, very important. Shared goals, shared values, shared direction. That's very, very important. Like I said, more important than shared culture of origin. Respect.
Communication.
What? Communication, very important. Honesty, very important. I have a question for you. If I don't answer this, would it bother you? If I just leave this Zoom call right now and I never answer it, would it bother you?
We saw the internet cut out. What did you say?
I said, if I leave this Zoom call now and I never answer this question, will it bother you?
At this point, yes. Probably for at least the next 24 hours, maybe 12. And I'll probably forget.
Come on, you're going to forget about it. I don't have to.
I'll forget eventually, but
yeah.
Well, for now, I'm really interested. You really got my attention.
Levy, for 24 hours, I'm going to get you going for 24 hours? Wow.
Honestly, probably for at least till I go to sleep.
Really? Okay, until you go to sleep. What is that, 3 hours?
Yeah, 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, okay, wow. 3 hours.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's really good. I like that control.
No? I'm dying to know.
Really? Forget about it. I'm not going to answer it. Is it really going to bother you? Really? Somebody give me a good reason why I should answer it.
No, you think it's so important, your secret, Like, I think we'll all be fine without it. So that's
Okay, good.
if it really you thought, does it really matter?
See? Why do you want to know? Tell me why you want to know.
Are you gonna say something on the lines of like how it's our narrative, so ultimately we decide?
No, I'm not that low. I'm going to give you an answer. Of course I'll give you an answer, but I want to know why you want to know it.
Hold in my back pocket until it's relevant.
Well, ultimately, we assume that you're credible in your field, and therefore we find that this information would be useful for us.
That sounds like a load of wonderful stuff. Didn't convince me, Lev. I want a compelling argument.
I would like to have a good marriage.
Oh, because you want to make your partner happy. That's good. Because you've negated what we thought until now what it was. Okay, I like that. Okay, someone's fine without it. Good. Some people I see have already kind of withered off the call because it's been going more than an hour at this point.
Can I challenge you, Rabbi?
Please.
So why would you want to share with us? I think because you just one of us. You're the Jew, and you wanted to help us. You want us to give us something that we can sleep peacefully tonight, and not to be, turning in bed.
You're a real pure soul. I cannot fight that. I have nothing to say to you. You're a real pure heart. Look at that.
I live long.
God bless you.
Yes. You one of us, and we one of you.
That's it.
This and now, Torah.
I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer is exactly what I just did. The answer is curiosity. Because when you're curious, you want to know more.
Very good.
Because when you're curious, you lean forward. When you're curious, you're interested. As long as you're curious about your partner, you can develop a relationship. And that is the most important thing you need to know now in the beginning of the relationship.
By the way, just my comment, this is very brilliant. This is brilliant. What you just saying. Thank you.
Is trust more important than commitment? Trust is only important long term. Commitment is important short term.
Is marriage to love or to have children?
Is marriage to love or to have children? I think that's a loaded question. Zev, I'm already getting to know you full of loaded questions.
What's it loaded with?
It's loaded with, you gave me two options. I don't like either of them. So that's loaded. I want another option.
I don't know if I can come up with another option, but I could try to explain myself a little bit.
Sure, please.
So I see a lot of times in different sources, it'll say like you get married or you have intimacy in order like puru. That's the mitzvah. As far as I'm aware, off the top of my head, there's no mitzvah to love a wife. Not like at least part of the 613. I obviously know that there's halachic, like halacha does say we should love a wife.
Yeah.
Huh?
And Levi, I got it. Yeah.
I didn't hear what Levi said.
Simach es ishto is the mitzvah in the Torah.
Simach es ishtoi?
Yeah, to make your wife happy.
Oh, okay. I didn't fully fine. Yeah, but it seems like peer review is usually the most primary reason that I don't
necessarily. I mean, look, it's the question you're asking has within it a lot of generalizations. I'm gonna stop you, not because I think anything negative of your question or what it is, but it's private. It's a private question, and it's a very important question, and I wouldn't want to just cheapen it by just having an open conversation with it.
Okay, I do appreciate that.
The premise.
Honestly, I'll tell you though, I didn't really feel like there were other questions that I definitely asked that were loaded, that were a little more controversial.
What I'm saying is the premise of this question The premise of this question is loaded. Because you're saying you're just starting off with Puruvu. Well, you have to understand there's a lot. Life is not linear, it's fluid. There's a lot more than just a random statement taken out of a random verse in Genesis that has no context behind it. That's why I'm saying that it's private and it needs to be dealt with in that manner. Okay?
Okay.
Why is trust long term but commitment is short term?
Trust, because trust can happen. Trust is by its very nature takes a long time to build. You build trust. Commitment is what you decide right now. Trust is what you build. That's what you want to in the long-term relationship. You want to build trust in your relationship. But today you have to commit. Look, the moment, I got this question recently from someone, and it's kind of answers another question I got just now as well here. The moment you decide that this person is going to be your wife, they are your soulmate. You don't ask the question, is this person my soulmate, when you're married to them? You can ask it before. So that commitment that you make at marriage, that's a very powerful experience. That's when you make a commitment. And you don't look back. There's no prenups. I mean, yeah, we have a ketubah, and the ketubah has within it, in case something goes wrong, a certain value that you have to make sure not to leave her on her feet. Okay, fine. But besides for that, that's what commitment is. Trust is something that's built over time.
And how do you build that trust?
That is something that we will leave for when you're married. And if you have any questions like that, call me anytime.
I'm married, but
okay.
I can private message you, I guess.
Please. It's a private question. You'll see why. When I answer, you'll understand why. I'm gonna pry you a little bit, and I'm gonna ask you something else. And the moment I ask you the clarifying question, you're not gonna want it to be public.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can be here all night. You know what? I think let's stop here. This has been fantastic. I hope this has been helpful to you. It's been enlightening to me as well. You know where to find me. I'm available. I'll try to make myself available as much as I can to help you. And thank you for staying on this long and sharing this journey.
Rob, I actually have one more
Thanks
question.
so much.
Basically, one of the things I noticed, before in the meeting, where a guy said if we should keep any secrets, and you said how you could keep secrets before marriage, but after the marriage, you cannot keep any secrets. I understand, but when a person's on a shech date, he needs to know a lot of information before he goes in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was, sorry, I'm going to clarify that for Yosef. I'm saying things that, for example, if you have a previous life, a lot of people, I'm assuming on this call, are Bali Tshuva. If you have a previous life, you don't have to tell the person you're dating every single thing that happened to you in your previous life. I'm not talking about secrets now. I'm talking about secrets from your past. They don't have to know. You don't have to spill your whole life out to them on the table the first date. Over time, if you want, you can tell them different things, but not right away. Now, what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, what you're wanting for the future, that's important for the dating process now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a good night all. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message them to me privately. I'll try to, if you do it via WhatsApp, it's much easier because I can just voice note it to you. And I like that better than having to write it. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
1 second. How'd you get into this whole relationship field?
It just happened. It's crazy. I never expected this is going to be my shlichus and what I'm doing. I never expected it. It just kind of happened. I kind of landed on it about 10 years ago.
Did you come to Crown Heights to give a talk a few months ago?
I did.
That's where I know you from. I knew I recognized your name.
Yeah, I did.
All right, cool. Thanks so much.
Okay. All the best. Bye.
All right.